It's been 17 years, and in all that time, I have never told a living soul what really happened that night. Not my wife, not my friends, not even the people I trusted most. I carry it every single day like a shadow that never lifts. You see, there's a child, a beautiful child, who calls me Dad. The world believes she's mine. My wife believes she's mine. But I know the truth, and that truth is the reason I haven't slept a single night in peace since the day she was born. The night it all began wasn't loud or chaotic. It was ordinary, almost too ordinary. My wife had gone out earlier than usual. I remember the smell of rain in the air, the sound of tires on wet streets outside our window. I thought she was meeting a friend. I thought nothing of it. Hours passed. Then a phone call came. A voice I knew, a voice that would change everything. That call led me to a place I had no reason to be. A place where a friend of mine, someone I trusted like a brother, was waiting. But he wasn't alone. And what I saw in that moment still burns in my memory like it happened yesterday. I can tell you this, it wasn't just betrayal I walked in on. There was something else that night, something criminal, something that would connect me to a decision that I've been paying for every day since. And this story, it doesn't end there, because what happened that night didn't just destroy my trust. It opened a chain of events that involved the police, missing money, and a disappearance that still has no explanation. Today, for the first time, I'm telling everything, from the first lie to the last time I saw the man who caused it all. And along the way, you'll hear the part I've never spoken out loud, not even to myself, in the dead of night. A secret so dangerous, it could still ruin lives, including my own. So, if you choose to keep watching, you'll hear about the night I learned my child wasn't mine, the crime I became part without wanting to, and the reason I can never, ever let my wife know the truth. You don't know me, and that's deliberate. If my name was out there, if my face was on your screen right now, I wouldn't make it to the end of this recording. That's not drama. That's just the truth. I'm a husband, a father. At least that's what the world sees. But privately, I'm a man who's been living in a prison without bars for nearly 2 decades. A man who smiles in photographs, pays the bills, drives his daughter to school, while every second, a question burns in the back of my mind. Does she know? What's at stake? Everything. My marriage, my family, my reputation, and my freedom. Because the truth I'm about to tell you isn't just about an affair. It isn't just about a child who isn't biologically mine. This is about a crime. A real crime. One that I never reported. Because I couldn't. Because if I did, my wife's secret and mine would come out in the open. And neither of us would survive it. Why am I telling it now? A letter. That's all it took. No return address. No signature. Just one sentence typed in block letters. I know what you did. It showed up 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've been waiting for the knock on the door. And if that's coming, I need my side of the story out there before someone else twists it. 17 years ago, it was a Friday, late summer. The kind of night where the air clings to you, warm and damp, even after the sun is gone. My wife had been restless all day. I remember her pacing the kitchen, checking her phone more than usual. She told me she was going to see a girlfriend from work. I didn't question it. Why would I? By 9 o'clock, she still wasn't home. I just poured myself a drink when the phone rang. It wasn't her. It was someone I hadn't spoken to in weeks. Mark. He was more than a friend. He was like a brother to me. We grew up together, shared holidays, even lived together in our 20s. His voice that night was different, low, urgent. He said he needed to see me. No explanation. I almost said no, but there was something in the way he said my name. So I went. He told me to meet him at an old warehouse on the edge of town. The place had been shut for years, one of those empty shells you pass every day without noticing. I remember the sound of my shoes on the gravel when I got out of the car. Every step echoed in the quiet. The front door was ajar. Inside, the air smelled like oil and damp wood. My eyes adjusted slowly, and then I saw them, my wife and Mark, standing close. Too close. Her face pale, his shirt stained. with something dark. Between them, on the floor, was a bag, a heavy black duffel bag. Before I could speak, Mark stepped forward. He said, "You didn't see anything. You don't want to see anything." Then he kicked the bag. It slid toward me, and the zipper caught the light. When it opened slightly, I saw stacks of cash, bundled, tightly wrapped. My wife's eyes never met mine. She just said, "Please, just trust me." And that's when I heard it, the faint sound of sirens in the distance, getting closer. In that moment, my brain split in two. One side screaming to walk away, call the police, save myself. The other side locked on my wife's trembling hands, her lips pressed together like she was holding in more than just words. Mark grabbed the bag, shoved it into my arms, and told me to take it home. "They won't suspect you," he said. "You're clean." I didn't understand then, but later I would. He wasn't just involving me. He was protecting himself. If I had the money, the crime would be tied to me, too. I made a choice. I took the bag. I told myself it was to protect her. But in truth, I was afraid. Afraid of losing her. Afraid of what Mark might do if I refused. Afraid of the questions the police would ask. That was the moment, the one I can't undo. Because from that second on, I wasn't an innocent man anymore. The police never came to our door that night, or the next, or ever. The news reported a robbery, a violent one. No suspects, no arrests, no mention of how much money was taken. But I knew because that bag sat under our bed for 3 days before Mark came back for it. When he did, my wife left with him. She was gone for hours. When she came back, she didn't speak a word about it. Not then, not ever. We pretended it never happened. And then, 2 months later, she told me she was pregnant. The timing was off, way off, but I didn't say anything. I wanted to believe. I wanted the story in my head to be true, that the baby was mine, that the past was behind us. I signed the birth certificate without question. Mark disappeared a year later. Just gone. No calls, no sightings, no body. I thought that was the end of it. But now, with that letter in my hand, I know it wasn't. I've spent 17 years living with 2 lies. One about who I am as a father, and one about the crime I became part of. I tell myself I stayed silent to protect my family, but maybe I stayed silent to protect myself. When I look at my daughter, I see someone who has no idea the ground she's standing on was built over secret. And I ask myself, if she found out, would she forgive me? Or would she hate me for the rest of her life? So now I'm asking you, the person hearing my voice right now, what would you have done? Would you have told the truth, no matter the cost? Or would you have done what I did, build your life on a lie, and pray it never comes crashing down? Because here's the thing about secrets, they don't go away. They wait, they watch, and eventually they come knocking. I thought the phone call that night was the only time I'd ever hear Mark's voice sound like that, urgent, almost controlled. But I was wrong. A week after that night at the warehouse, my phone rang again. It was late. I was alone in the living room, the TV on but muted. The number flashing on the screen wasn't his, but when I answered, it was him, the same voice. Only this time, it was different. He didn't greet me, didn't ask how I was. He just said a single sentence, and then hung up. That sentence. I've never told anyone, not my wife, not the police, because even though it was only a handful of words, they made me realize something I hadn't considered before. Something that could destroy more than just my marriage if it ever got out. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't an apology. It was something else. Something that connected me, my wife, and that bag of money in a way I couldn't have imagined that night. And here's the thing, it's not just the words he said. It was what I heard in the background. A noise, faint, mechanical, repetitive. I didn't know what it was at the time, but later, much later, I recognized it. And when I did, it was like the whole puzzle shifted in my mind. It made me realize that whatever Mark was involved in, it wasn't over. Not even close. If I tell you what that noise was right now, it'll give away too much, too soon. But I will tell you this. When I finally figured it out, it was the exact moment I understood that Mark hadn't just disappeared to protect himself. He disappeared to protect me. Or maybe to control me. For years, I convinced myself the timing of the pregnancy was just coincidence. That maybe I'd done the math wrong in my head. That's what you do when you love someone. You rewrite the facts until they're almost believable. But then, 3 years ago, I saw something that tore those rewrites apart. It was just an ordinary afternoon. I was in the kitchen, sorting through a box of old photographs my wife had pulled from the attic. Most were harmless, birthdays, family holidays, the usual smiles. And then I found it. It was a photo of my wife and Mark, the two of them standing close together in a place I'd never seen before. It wasn't the setting that caught me. It was the date printed in faded ink on the back. That date, it lined up exactly with the night she told me she was pregnant. At first, I told myself maybe it was an old picture, something from before we were married. But then I noticed something in the corner of the frame, a small detail most people wouldn't see. I recognized it instantly, and that single detail told me two things. One, that the photo wasn't old at all, and two, that the place they were in was connected to the bag of money from that night. I can't tell you what the detail was yet, because when I finally confronted her about it, what happened next made me realize she'd been keeping another secret, one that had nothing to do with Mark, but everything to do with me. I thought Mark had vanished for good. No calls, no messages, no sightings. Life slowly settled into something that looked normal. I buried the memories under routine, work, bills, raising my daughter, and then one afternoon, he showed up at my workplace. I remember it so clearly. I was sitting in my office when the receptionist buzzed me. She said, "There's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent." My stomach turned before I even asked who it was. She just said, "He won't give his name." When I walked into the lobby, I froze. It wasn't Mark, but it was someone who knew him. Someone I recognized from a single night, the night of the warehouse. This man didn't smile, didn't shake my hand. He just looked me dead in the eye and said, "Mark can't come himself, but he told me to give you this." Then he slid something across the counter to me. It wasn't big, it wasn't heavy, but when I opened it later, I realized it wasn't just a message. It was proof that Mark was still out there and that he still had a hold on my life. Proof that could drag me back into everything I've been trying to outrun for 17 years. And the most disturbing part, what he gave me wasn't from Mark at all. Not really. It was from someone else. Someone I didn't even know existed, but who somehow knew everything about me. When that letter arrived 2 weeks ago, the one that simply said, "I know what you did," I assumed it was meant for me. Who else could it be for? But then, a few nights later, I made a discovery that turned that assumption upside down. I was in my study, sorting through bills and junk mail, when I found another envelope buried under the pile. This one had no return address either, but the handwriting was the same. The strange part? It wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to my wife. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it for hours, my mind running through every possible scenario. If it was about that night, why would someone write to her separately? Unless there was something they knew that I didn't. When I finally slit the envelope open, I realized I was only half right. It was connected to that night, but it wasn't about me at all. It was about something my wife did after that night. Something she never told me. Something that, if it's true, changes everything I thought I knew about why Mark disappeared. I'll tell you exactly what was in that letter. But before I do, you need to understand the risk I'm taking even saying this out loud. I still remember the way the light hit her face that morning. It was soft, warm, almost too perfect for the kind of truth I was carrying in my chest. We were in the kitchen. She was humming, her hair messy from sleep, the baby wrapped in that little yellow blanket her mother had knitted. And for a split second, I forgot the secret. But secrets have a way of reminding you they exist. Because as I poured my coffee, my eyes caught the framed photo on the counter. The one from the hospital. Her holding the baby, me standing beside her, smiling, and him, that man. See, I didn't know him, not really, but when I first saw the baby, when I first held her, I saw something that I couldn't unsee. A faint dimple on the left cheek, a sharp curve of the nose, eyes a shade too different from mine. It was the kind of detail most people would brush off, but I couldn't, because that same week I saw him standing in the hallway at her office, lean, confident, with that exact same dimple. If you were in my shoes, I'd ask my viewers right here, would you have confronted her, or would you have let it go? I told myself I was being paranoid, that love means trust, that marriage means giving the benefit of the doubt. But then, 2 weeks later, something happened that shattered that little mental wall I'd been building. I was on my lunch break when my phone buzzed. It was a notification from our shared credit card account, a charge from a hotel at 11:43 a.m. Now, my wife doesn't work anywhere near that hotel, and she definitely doesn't have meetings there. The human brain does something strange in these moments. It slows everything down. You start remembering tiny things from months before, like a laugh she didn't explain, a perfume you didn't buy, a text message she turned her phone over to hide. I told myself, don't jump to conclusions. But deep down, my stomach knew. I didn't say anything that night. I sat at the dinner table, smiling, nodding at her stories, laughing at her jokes, while my mind was 1,000 miles away. Because here's the truth. Sometimes silence feels safer than an answer. But safety doesn't last forever. I thought I could keep living like that, pretending nothing was wrong. But then one afternoon, I walked into something I was never supposed to see. It was a Sunday. She had taken the baby out for a walk. At least, that's what she said. I was cleaning up in the bedroom when I noticed her work bag in the corner. It was open. Now, I'm not the type to snoop, but the thing about secrets, they pull at you like gravity. Inside her bag was a small envelope. Inside the envelope, a photograph. It was her holding the baby, but it wasn't the hospital photo. It was at the hotel. And the man was standing right next to her, his arm around her, his smile wide. My knees almost buckled, because that smile, it was the same one the baby gave me the first time I held her. That night, she came home, kissed me, placed the baby in my arms, and looked me dead in the eye as if nothing had happened. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask 100 questions, but the words got stuck in my throat. Because here's the part most people don't talk about. When you love someone, even betrayal doesn't erase that love overnight. It just poisons it slowly. What would you have done? Would you have asked her right there? Or would you have waited for more proof? Drop your answer in the comments. I'm really curious. The next morning, I decided I needed to know the full truth. Not a guess, not suspicion. Proof. I called an old friend of mine, a guy who worked as a private investigator. I told him everything. The photo, the hotel charge, the moon. He didn't judge me. He just said one thing. If you want the truth, be ready to face it. 3 days later, he called me. He had pictures, videos, and in those videos, my wife was with him, laughing, holding hands, whispering things I couldn't hear. But then there was something else, a piece of paper, a paternity test form, and on that form was my baby's name. That's when I realized the truth wasn't just about betrayal. It was about something far bigger, something that would force me to decide whether I was a father or just a man raising another man's child. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She cried. She said it was complicated, that she didn't mean for it to happen. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to find some kind of loophole in the situation that made me the father. But the truth is, I already knew. She said the man had been a friend, someone she turned to when we were going through a rough patch, someone who helped her feel alive again. And in that moment, I felt two things at once, love and hate. Love, because I couldn't stop looking at her without remembering the woman I'd fallen for. Hate, because she had destroyed the very thing we built together. For weeks, I didn't know what to do. I kept the secret from my friends, from my family. I even kept acting like everything was fine around the baby, because she didn't ask to be part of this. And here's the cruel twist. The more I looked at her, the more I saw him. If you were me, would you walk away, or would you stay for the child you've raised since birth? Every day, I replayed that hospital moment in my head. Her smile, my tears, the way I whispered, "I'll always protect you." And I realized maybe fatherhood isn't just about DNA. Maybe it's about showing up, about love, about choosing someone, even when the world says you don't have to. But then, something happened that changed my mind completely. It was a Tuesday. I was picking the baby up from daycare when I saw him again, standing outside, waiting. Our eyes met, and in that instant, I knew he wasn't just visiting. He was watching me. And that's where I'll leave it for now, because the next part is the moment everything exploded. And once you hear it, you'll understand why I can't tell my wife, and why this secret might be the thing that destroys all of us. The next evening, I barely touched my food, not because I wasn't hungry, but because every bite tasted like sand. I couldn't shake the thought that my own bloodline might have been severed without my consent. My wife was busy, moving around the house like nothing was wrong. She hummed while folding laundry. She laughed on the phone with her sister. And when she looked at me, she smiled. But her smile, it didn't reach her eyes anymore. 11:47 p.m. The house was quiet. My wife was asleep beside me, breathing softly. I stared at the ceiling, listening to my heart pounding against my ribs. I needed answers. Tonight, I slid out of bed as quietly as I could, careful not to wake her. I went to my office and booted up my laptop, not for work, but for something much darker. I typed the number I'd been given by the private investigator. The Mun answered after one ring. "Is this about the test results?" he asked. I froze. You already have them?" There was a long pause. "Yes, but before I tell you, you should know that once I say this, you can't unhear it." My throat was dry. "Just tell me." Silence. And then, "They're not yours." It felt like the air was punched out of my lungs. I sat there, gripping the desk so hard my knuckles turned white. The Mun kept talking, explaining the percentages, the science, the certainty, but I wasn't hearing him anymore. The blood in my ears drowned him out. All I could think was, 17 years. 17 years. I hung up without saying goodbye. I just sat there in the dark, staring at the glow of my laptop screen. And then, I heard the sound. Soft footsteps. In the hallway. They stopped just outside my office door. "Can't sleep?" It was her voice. Calm. Almost too calm. I turned slowly in my chair. She was standing there, her robe loosely tied, her eyes catching just enough light for me to see. There was no surprise in them. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice shaking. She tilted her head slightly, almost like she was disappointed in me. "I was going to, one day," she said, "but you were happy. Why ruin that?" I stood up. "Happy? You think living a lie is happiness?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You wouldn't understand. You couldn't give me what I wanted, and he could." Her words hit me harder than the DNA results ever could. I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to scream. This isn't just about me. This is about him, our son, the boy I've raised for 17 years. She stepped closer, her voice suddenly cold. "He's my son, and nothing you say will change that." For a moment, I didn't recognize the woman standing in front of me, but then she smiled again. That same hollow smile I'd seen earlier. "Go back to bed," she said softly. "Tomorrow we'll pretend this conversation never happened." And with that, she turned and walked away. The next morning, I woke up to an empty side of the bed. She was gone. On the kitchen counter was a note in her handwriting. "Don't try to find me. Take care of yourself. And don't tell him." I searched the house. Nothing. No clothes in the closet. No toothbrush in the bathroom. Her phone, gone. It was like she'd evaporated overnight. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream. But the truth was, I was numb. The only sound in the house was the ticking of the clock. Every second felt like a countdown to something I didn't understand yet. Around noon, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a plain envelope on the doorstep. No address, no name. Inside was a single photograph. Her, standing in front of a hotel, holding hands with him. And next to her, my son, smiling. My hands trembled as I flipped the photo over. On the back, in neat handwriting, were 3 words. He knows now. I didn't understand what that meant until my phone rang. It was my son. His voice was shaking. Dad, Mom told me everything. The world tilted. Where are you? I asked, my voice breaking. But before he could answer, the line went dead. I called again, straight to voicemail. Then a text came through. Stop calling. You lied to me my whole life. I felt the floor drop beneath me. This wasn't just betrayal from my wife anymore. This was losing the only person I thought was truly mine. And worse, somewhere deep down, I knew this wasn't over. A stranger's message. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet. I sat in the living room, staring at the photo again, when my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. The message read, "She isn't who you think she is. Meet me tomorrow. Alone. No name. No details. Just an address." I should have deleted it. I should have ignored it. But something inside me, maybe desperation, maybe obsession, told me I needed to go. I didn't know it yet, but that decision would change everything. The final meeting. The next day, I drove to the address. It was a small cafe on the edge of town, half empty in the early morning light. In the back booth sat a man in a dark coat. He was older, with tired eyes, but when he looked at me, there was recognition. "You're the husband?" he said. I nodded slowly. He leaned forward. "I'm the man she was seeing before you, and the man before him." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" He slid a small folder across the table. Inside were photographs. Different men, different cities, all with her. "She's been doing this for years," he said quietly. "She finds men who can give her the life she wants. And when she's done, she disappears, takes what she can, leaves no trace." I stared at the photos, my mind spinning. It didn't make sense. I wanted to believe he was lying, but deep down, I knew he wasn't. "She has a pattern," he continued. "She's not just running away. She's planning something. And this time, you're in the middle of it." I asked him what he meant. He glanced around, then whispered, "She's coming back, but not for you, for something you have that she needs." Before I could ask what, he slid me one last photo. It was taken last night. Her, standing outside my house, watching. My blood went cold. That's when he leaned closer and said, "You have no idea what she's capable of." And just like that, he got up and walked out of the cafe. I sat there, gripping the photo, my mind racing. If she was watching my house last night, then maybe she was already inside. I drove home faster than I ever had in my life. When I opened the door, everything looked normal. But then, I noticed it. A faint smell of her perfume, coming from upstairs. I took the steps slowly, my heart pounding louder with each one. And as I reached the top, I saw it. The bedroom door, slightly open. I pushed it open, and there she was, sitting on the edge of the bed, smiling. "Miss me?" she asked. And that is where I'll stop for now, because what happened next is something I've never admitted to anyone. If this story sent a chill down your spine, hit that subscribe button, not just for me, but because your reaction might help someone else realize they're living in a lie before it's too late. Like, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Because the next part of this confession, it's darker than you think.